Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My parents forced me to marry a dead man and even made me spend our wedding night in a coffin with him. At the time, everyone thought my parents had gone mad. But not only did I not resist, I even smiled brightly. It was because he was not only extremely handsome but also the Demon King. Moreover, 7 days after the apocalypse, strange and eerie events would begin. He would awaken and become the ruler of this world. In this life, I not only wanted to marry him as soon as possible, but also desired to become the Demon Queen. Only by doing so could I take revenge on the beastly family of mine in my previous life. When the apocalypse arrived, my parents, desperate to find shelter, chose to offer me to an ugly demon who enjoyed torturing women. In despair, I fought back with all my might. Unexpectedly, my beastly brother knocked me out cold. After I was handed over to the demon, he subjected me to 1,008 tortures because he enjoyed hearing the screams of women in pain. In the end, I died in agony, filled with resentment. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the time before the apocalypse. In this life, I would never care about that ridiculous family again. I wanted to personally send my beastly brother to hell. At that moment, the urgent voices of the villagers echoed outside the door. Something bad had happened. Upon hearing the news, David, our neighbor, stormed out of his house shouting, "What's all the yelling about? Did someone die? Even if they're not dead yet, your ghostly voice alone could scare someone to death." A thin young man, panting heavily, knocked on the door and said, "Yes, someone really has died. A coffin has appeared in the middle of the village, and no one knows who it belongs to." Hearing this, I showed no surprise or curiosity on my face because only I knew that it was the coffin of the Demon King, Alex. In my previous life, my parents had forced me to marry the person inside that coffin for a bit of money. I couldn't accept it and fled on our wedding night. Before escaping, I had cried in front of the coffin, pouring out my misfortunes. Perhaps out of pity, a jade pendant suddenly flew out of the coffin. After the apocalypse arrived, I discovered that it was a gift from the Demon King, Alex. He protected me and my family from many disasters. Unfortunately, in the end, I was still betrayed by my cruel family, wasting Alex's kindness. Now reborn, I was determined to cling to Alex's leg to survive the apocalypse. The thin young man, Wang Hua, after finishing his story, called everyone to the village entrance to see the coffin. Soon the entire village was drawn to the scene. The coffin was made of translucent white jade, its surface intricately carved with golden patterns. The villagers' eyes gleamed with greed. Jade was already valuable, let alone such a large piece like this coffin. It was truly a priceless treasure. Hearing this, David, our neighbor, rolled his eyes and loudly declared, "This coffin at the village entrance isn't good. Why don't we move it to the abandoned plot of land near my house?" As soon as he finished speaking, someone immediately objected. "No way! What are you trying to pull? Do you think we don't know you just want to monopolize this treasure?" The two began to argue loudly until the village chief, Victor, arrived and stopped them. "Enough arguing. We don't even know if there's anyone inside the coffin. Let's open it first and see what's inside before making any decisions," the village chief said in a firm voice. His authority and reputation made the villagers agree enthusiastically. Seeing this, I smiled. They still didn't know the danger they were in. Just like in my previous life, I not only didn't stop them but even added fuel to the fire. "That's right," I said. "I've heard that ancient people of high status would bury many treasures with them. There must be many treasures inside." As soon as I finished speaking, someone agreed with me. Tom, a well-educated student, said, "She's definitely right." Hearing this, the greed in the villagers' eyes grew even stronger. Even the village chief, Victor, had a glint in his eyes. He immediately said, "This coffin lid is probably quite heavy. Let's choose 4 strong young men to open it. I'll pay each of them $1,000. If there are treasures inside, the ones who open the coffin can choose one first." As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd erupted. Everyone rushed to open the coffin lid. I stood coldly watching the scene. These people were just fighting to die. Disturbing Alex's century-long slumber would only result in their deaths. But I could use this opportunity to make my despicable brother one of the coffin openers. I could use Alex's hand to take revenge on him first. Thinking this, I immediately said, "Opening this coffin isn't an easy task. I've heard that ancient people, to prevent tomb robbers, would set traps inside the coffin. These traps are extremely dangerous and can easily take lives." After I finished speaking, the village chief, Victor, glanced at me with annoyance while the villagers exchanged uneasy looks. They all became silent, too scared to speak. At that moment, I pulled Tom to my side and whispered, "Actually, I was just scaring them. Look at this pure white jade coffin without a single flaw. The owner inside must be a noble person with high moral character. They wouldn't play such dirty tricks." Tom, who had dropped out of school after middle school and was a thug with no education or knowledge, was easily swayed. His biggest traits were being both stupid and ugly, completely lacking in brains. Hearing my words, he immediately became excited. "Really? If you're lying to me, I'll sell you to a bar in the city," he threatened. Hearing this, I deliberately trembled, pretending to be scared. "How could I dare lie to you? I guarantee everything I said is true. Compared to my family, Alex can be considered a noble person." Tom nodded, satisfied. "Good." Then he pushed through the crowd and loudly shouted, "Step aside, all of you, if you don't dare let me do it." Seeing this, my mother scolded me. "What are you doing? How could you let your brother do something so dangerous? Why don't you go instead?" My father also coldly snorted. "A daughter is just a daughter, completely unreliable." Hearing their cold words, I clenched my fists. After being reborn, I had become darker and more ruthless. Not laying a hand on them was already my limit. When the apocalypse arrived, I would definitely settle accounts with them. My brother, swayed by my words, completely ignored my parents' objections and insisted on proceeding. Soon, people, including my foolish brother, stood around the coffin, carefully feeling for a gap to pry open the lid. But as soon as they touched the coffin, their bodies trembled as if electrocuted, and they collapsed unconscious. The villagers immediately panicked and stepped back. The village chief also retreated a few steps in fear. After a commotion, the villagers were terrified, crying out, "Why is this coffin so eerie? Could there be demons or ghosts inside?" Hearing this, my mother's face turned pale, and she grabbed my arm, questioning me. "You little brat, did you deliberately harm your brother? If anything happens to him, don't think you'll live peacefully." My father also glared at me with a dark expression. Though he didn't say anything, his anger sent chills down my spine. Seeing this, the corner of my mouth twitched, but I quickly lowered my head, pretending to tremble. "Mom, Dad, I didn't mean to. You should check on my brother first. Saving him is more important." Hearing my words, my father coldly said, "I can't go. What if I encounter danger?" My mother chimed in, "That's right, your father is the pillar of our family. He can't go." Then they both looked at me and said in unison, "You're just a girl. You're not useful at home anyway. Go and bring your brother back." Hearing this, I pretended to be scared and hesitant. I don't dare unless you give me the wooden card Grandma left behind." The wooden card looked ordinary, even a bit rotten. But when the apocalypse arrived, it would emit a mysterious power, making it a rare treasure. My mother sneered, "What's so valuable about that old woman's stuff? Just take it without further ado." Under everyone's watchful eyes, I stepped forward and pulled my brother back. In my previous life, someone who did this didn't encounter any problems, so I naturally wasn't afraid. After 2 days, my brother gradually regained consciousness. The other 3 young men also woke up one by one, all of them extremely weak, their spirits highly tense as if they had just experienced a nightmare. I knew this was Alex's punishment for those who dared to disturb his tomb. They must have endured hellish tortures in their dreams. Afterward, the water in the village gradually dried up, the crops in the fields withered in large patches, the radio signals came and went, and even the dogs in the village barked incessantly. These strange phenomena made the villagers anxious and fearful at first. Many still wanted to open the coffin themselves, but after a series of bizarre events, everyone was too scared to try. The village chief, Victor, sought out a famous medium from the region. The medium, her face full of wrinkles, listened to the whole story and personally came to the white jade coffin, performing a divination. After a series of mysterious rituals, the medium trembled and said with a heavy expression, "It's over. Your village has provoked something big." Hearing this, the villagers surrounded her, their faces filled with terror. The more timid ones directly knelt on the ground, kowtowing repeatedly. I stood at the edge, coldly observing these foolish people while silently waiting for the moment to perform the wedding ceremony with Alex. The medium spoke for a long time, and the village chief took out a stack of money, stuffing it into her clothes, and humbly said, "We're ignorant and made a huge mistake. Please, what should we do to atone?" The medium sighed. "It's very difficult. A great being like this isn't easily angered. I'm just an immortal. It's hard for me to help." Hearing this, Victor gritted his teeth, took out another stack of money, and continued to plead. "Though it's difficult, there are always more solutions than problems. Please help us, poor souls. The villagers will definitely be grateful." Hearing this, the villagers eagerly agreed, all vowing to offer money and incense if the matter was resolved. Seeing this, the medium nodded slightly. "If that's the case, I'll risk giving you a way out. To appease this great being, you need to choose a beautiful girl for a ghost marriage. This way, the other party might forgive you." As soon as she finished speaking, the villagers erupted in discussion. A ghost marriage? That poor girl would be miserable. A living person marrying a dead one is truly sinful. Families with daughters all shook their heads, unwilling to let their daughters suffer this fate. The village chief, knowing it would be hard to find a beautiful girl, looked around and shouted, "Which family is willing to marry their daughter to this great being? I'll give $10,000 as a wedding gift, and each family in the village must contribute at least $1,000 as a wedding offering." As soon as he finished speaking, my despicable brother stumbled out of the house. "My sister! My sister!" The villagers looked at him in shock, never expecting him to sell his sister like this. He was truly a scoundrel born from hell, but my brother didn't care about these things. He just happily said to my parents, "Tens of thousands of dollars is a great deal. Selling this useless girl for tens of thousands of dollars is such a bargain." My parents also smiled and nodded in agreement. If this were my previous life, I would have tried to escape, but after being reborn, I wanted to turn the tables. So I pretended to be scared and took a few steps back. "Mom, Dad, you mustn't sell me. I don't want to marry a dead person." Then she burned the contract in front of the white jade coffin. Afterward, the villagers built a simple wooden house around the white jade coffin and locked me inside. The medium said I needed to stay with my husband to nurture our relationship. I pretended to be unwilling, but after everyone left, I grinned from ear to ear because only I knew how powerful the leg I was clinging to was. First, I turned to the white jade coffin and introduced myself in detail. Then I sincerely apologized. "Great one, I didn't mean to offend you, but you've seen how I was forced by others. Please don't hold it against me. Since we've made a marriage contract, I hope you won't abandon me." After saying this, I began to diligently clean the coffin, trying to increase my favor with the great being. Since he had no ill intentions toward me, I didn't faint like my brother or endure tortures in my dreams. In the following days, the villagers brought me delicious meals on time every noon. Each meal had 4 meat dishes and 4 vegetarian dishes, totaling 8 dishes. All my favorite foods were included. I had never eaten such delicious meals before, but what made me feel awkward was that every night when I slept on the coffin, I seemed to feel his breath and body temperature. I knew this was a sign that he was about to awaken, but since this was my first intimate contact with a man, I couldn't help but blush, feeling a bit embarrassed as the man's breathing in the coffin became more rapid. 6 days quickly passed. The apocalypse was about to arrive. A blood-red light began to cover the sky. The white jade coffin beside me also began to show signs of movement, but after moving for a while, the coffin didn't open. I was puzzled. What was going on? A moment later, a voice came from inside the coffin. "Can you help me open the coffin?" The voice was cold, but I could sense a hint of awkwardness. The voice added, "The inside is tightly sealed. If you help from the outside, it'll be easier to break." I immediately found it a bit amusing. Alex, the great demon king, was struggling like this. In my previous life without me here, he must have been trapped inside for a long time. "How should I help you? Do I need to pour a basin of black dog blood?" Alex fell silent for a moment before replying, "No need for such trouble. Just use physical force." I made a sound of acknowledgement, then walked over, grabbed a corner of the coffin lid, and used all my strength to lift it. The lid flew off and I also fell to the ground. Alex stood up from the white jade coffin. His face was pale but extremely handsome. I was momentarily stunned. His eyes looked at me without any expression. "So you're the one who made a marriage contract with me?" I dumbly nodded. Alex pursed his lips and casually said, "I already have a fiancé." After saying this, he ignored me, turned around and prepared to leave. How could I let go of such a powerful leg? I hurriedly ran over and hugged his thigh. Looking at him pitifully, "Great one, please take me in. Even if you don't fancy me, I can be your nanny or maid." I quickly spouted a string of sweet words, begging him to accept me. Behind me, I couldn't see his fair face suddenly turn red. His slender, jade-like hand clenched slightly, and his body trembled faintly. He said in a cold voice, "Let go first." I guessed that with his temperament, he wouldn't do anything to me, especially since I had helped clean his coffin and even opened it for him. I had done him a favor, so there was no need to be cautious. I shamelessly said, "If you don't agree to take me in, I won't let go." I squeezed out 2 lines of tears. "Great one, the whole world is filled with demons now. If you abandon me, I'll be torn to pieces." Seeing me like this, Alex hurriedly said, "Fine, I agree to ensure your safety. Now can you let go?" I let go and breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, I had clung to a powerful leg. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. In this life, it wouldn't be me who died. Instead, I wanted to see how that despicable brother of mine would meet his end. Alex also breathed a sigh of relief. He quietly took a step back, thought for a moment and said, "I still have things to do. Since you have a connection with me, I'll give you something to help you survive the Ari apocalypse." Alex took out a blood bead. "This can turn you into a blood demon. As long as a drop of blood remains, you can regenerate. If you encounter a stronger demon, just mention my name, and it'll be enough to ensure your safety." I hurriedly grabbed the blood bead and swallowed it. He looked at me. "Do you trust me so easily?" I rolled my eyes and didn't answer. I had no choice but to trust him. Who asked me to be a weakling? Alex turned to leave, the corner of his mouth twitching into a smile I couldn't see. After I fully transformed into a blood demon, my sense of security increased greatly. Even in this apocalyptic world, it wasn't so scary anymore. Stepping out of the simple wooden house, the world was incredibly dark. In the northwest, flames soared into the sky. That must be the flame demon causing havoc. It was a powerful demon. Wherever it passed, it turned into a sea of fire. People caught in it would be burned to death. The burning sensation would start from the inside first, destroying the internal organs, then the skin. The pain would drive people to fear. The ground was covered with blood vessels, blue and red blood flowing inside. I wanted to see how he would suffer. I walked to the front of my house. The door opened by itself, seemingly welcoming me inside, but I wouldn't risk stepping into such a dangerous place. I immediately stopped, bit off the tip of my finger, and flicked a drop of blood inside. The blood transformed into a small blood person and ran into the house. My parents and brother were trapped inside. My brother hid behind my parents, trembling. "What kind of monster is this? Why can't we get out? That damn Mia. She's so lucky to escape this disaster." I hated that I couldn't kill this scoundrel immediately. He lived a miserable life and even secretly cursed me. How disgusting. Luckily, now he was at his wits' end while I was safe, standing outside watching the fire burn. It was truly satisfying. My father, who usually seemed calm, was now panicking. He lit a cigarette, his hands trembling as he smoked, cursing. "Stop hiding. What's the point? It's all because I spoiled you too much, turning you into a useless piece of trash." My mother pulled his sleeve, her body shaking like a leaf. "Stop scolding him. He's your son, the one who will carry on the Jia family line. We still need to rely on him." Gary, hiding behind them, kept nodding. "Yes, yes, Dad. No matter what, as long as I'm alive, the Xiao family line can continue, even if it means you have to risk your life to protect me." My father turned around, glaring at this beast. "Is my life not a life?" The two almost came to blows. My mother sighed. "If only Mia were here, we could have her block the front." I clenched my fists. In this family, I was always the one to be sacrificed. My brother chimed in. "That's right. She's not even a real member of the Jia family. Even if she dies 1,000 times, it's no loss to us. I stood outside the door wide-eyed. I never expected this. I was just an adopted child, picked up from somewhere. I was discriminated against and abused, not just because I was a woman but also because I was an outsider. Thinking of this, I suddenly felt relieved. At least my real family wasn't these beasts. At that moment, the house demon transformed into what my brother feared the most. Insects. The insects densely covered every surface, crawling into ears, eyes, noses, and mouths. The disgusting insects invaded every crevice. My brother trembled like a drunkard, letting out screams like a pig being slaughtered. My adoptive parents also turned pale, unable to deal with the dense insects biting and devouring them. Gary screamed miserably, rolling on the ground, powerless to resist. When their screams gradually weakened, the insects disappeared as if nothing had happened. The wounds on their bodies also slowly healed. Then various terrifying images appeared, tormenting them one after another. There was even an image of me, covered in blood, demanding their lives. Gary knelt on the ground, kowtowing repeatedly. "Mia, spare us. I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you like that." The small blood person I created watched from a corner of the house, revealing a joyful smile. This house demon was quite good. I never expected it to avenge me. My adoptive parents also knelt on the ground, crying miserably. "We're sorry. We shouldn't have abused you. We shouldn't have spoiled your brother. We shouldn't have looked down on you just because you're a woman. Please, for the sake of raising you all these years, spare our lives." Of course, their pleas were completely useless. After being tortured over a dozen times, the blood person I created swelled to normal size. They saw me appear. They were shocked. Mia, is that you? Have you come to save us?" My adoptive mother's eyes filled with tears. "I knew you wouldn't abandon us." Gary got up from the ground and hugged my leg. "Sister, please save me. Get me out of here." I smiled and nodded. "Don't worry, I'm here to save you all." The three of them immediately had a glimmer of hope in their eyes, but in my heart I was cold. I was only giving them hope before shattering it. Only then could I vent the hatred in my heart. I led the three of them outside. When we reached the door, I negotiated with the house demon. My strength was still very powerful, and the house demon was much weaker than me. Moreover, the house demon was already bored, so it went along with my plan and released them. Gary, seeing the door hadn't opened yet, pretended to go crazy. "Let me out. Just let me out. Leave those two old fools behind." My adoptive parents looked at him in dismay. My adoptive father's lips trembled as he begged. "We were wrong, Mia. For the sake of raising you and even sending you to college, please spare us." My expression didn't change. "I went to college thanks to student loans and working day and night. You didn't spend a single penny. On top of that, that despicable brother of mine took a lot of money from me. As for the debt of raising me, not to mention how you treated me like a dog. You've betrayed me multiple times. Any gratitude I had is long gone. Not killing you myself is already my limit." I asked, "Where did you adopt me from?" My adoptive father, as if grasping at straws, quickly thought and replied, "Your grandmother found you outside the village. You were 6 years old at the time, but you were still a bit slow." He trembled. "No, not slow, just, it seemed like you had lost your memory." I was stunned. I had never thought about this before, but now that I recalled, I really had no memory of anything before I was 6. I took out the wooden card my grandmother left behind. My adoptive father saw it and hurriedly said, Yes, this wooden card was also yours." My origins became hazy. I ignored him and directly left. No matter how he pleaded, I returned to the ghost house, searching for something related to me but found nothing. With nowhere to go, I chose to stay in the village temporarily. A week later, Alex, his breath weak and chaotic, returned to the village and collapsed into his white jade coffin. This scene made me feel incredulous. Alex was the demon king in my previous life. I had seen him wave his hand and scatter 10,000 demons into smoke. Why was he so badly injured now? Regardless, he had helped me. I wanted to take care of him with all my heart, but unfortunately he was a demon. Human methods of treatment had no effect. Alex just glanced at me. "Don't bother with me. It's useless. I'll sleep for a while and might recover." He hesitated for a moment before adding, "You should leave quickly. There might be danger soon. I was stunned. What danger? He smiled bitterly. Of course the dang. That injured me so badly. His deep eyes looked into the distance. Do you know what the strongest demon in this world is? I shook my head. Resentment demons. These demons are born from human resentment. As long as resentment exists in people's hearts, these demons cannot be destroyed. In times of chaos, the resentment in people's hearts grows stronger, and so do these demons. In this apocalyptic world, resentment demons have become invincible. I was dumbfounded. In my previous life, I was just a pitiful person betrayed by my family. How could I have known the secret? My mood was complicated and I just wanted to curse. Did I come back to life just to take revenge and not be able to continue living? It was truly despairing. I cautiously asked, do resentment demons kill other demons? Alex looked at me and smiled. Of course they do. I widened my eyes. Then why did you tell me to run? Alex's smile grew brighter. Live as long as you can. I was speechless. Alex sighed. There's a prophecy. The appearance of resentment demons marks the end of the world unless we find the person of hope, the seed of hope. I frowned. What's the person of hope? Alex thought for a moment. Someone who shouldn't exist. Someone who shouldn't have survived. My heart almost jumped out. Could it be me? I was reborn against the flow of time. Originally, I should have died. Maybe it's me. I said this and Alex's eyes widened. He muttered something about his fiancée. I didn't understand why he brought up his fiancée again. Alex's jade-like face turned red. You are my fiancée. I was shocked once more. Everything was so coincidental, as if fate had arranged it. I took out the wooden card and handed it to Alex. Clearly, this was the key item. Alex, seeing the wooden card, was extremely excited. He blew on it and a sapling grew tall. The bloody smell in the air lessened slightly, and a few rays of sunlight appeared in the sky. This tree can resist evil energy and weaken demons. A few months later, I had become a normal person. Alex's strength was also very weak in this world. Apart from Alex, there were no more demons. The resentment demons, having lost their source of power, disappeared. To save the world, both Alex and I had touched the laws of fate. We could both change a certain point in the past. Alex left a prophecy for his past self, while I created a version of myself that's 6 years old, carrying a wooden card. After everything ended, we married again, but this wasn't a ghost marriage. Joy filled the world. Alex knelt on one knee and made a lifelong promise to me.